Hello and welcome to all our viewers watching this broadcast. We are bringing you from Manhattan, where behind me is the wonderful, glorious, very impressive skyline of Manhattan in New York. And with me today is Maruf Raza, India's most trusted strategic affairs expert, who together with the rest of the Times Now crew will be bringing you analysis from New York and Washington over the next few days. And tomorrow is interesting at the UNGA because Nawaz Sharif speaks, and he speaks just about 24 hours before our Prime Minister Narendra Modi takes the stage. Will there be a confrontation? Will there be a difference of perception? How will both leaders respond to each other? Of course, there's no meeting that's likely to happen. With me to analyze all of this and more is Mr. Azim Mia. He's one of Pakistan's most trusted journalists, senior most journalists, and you head the operations of the very feisty Jung group from America, where you're fighting everyone, including the Pakistani military these days.
That's part of our life. Professional life, we have been doing it.
Thank you for making the time this morning. And I'm really delighted to meet you, Hussain Haqqani Sir, former Pakistani ambassador to the United States. Controversial.
Pleasure finally meeting you two, Arnav.
Pleasure meeting you in person as well. And he's now director of South Asia at the Hudson Institute. So he's turned into an academic after being a diplomat. Man wearing many hats. Thank you very much, everyone, first of all, for being with us this morning. May I begin by asking you, Azim Mia Sahab, when Nawaz Sharif speaks before the UNGA tomorrow, what are the issues that he's likely to focus on?
Right now, definitely, his whole trip is affected by the domestic politics, which has been going on, like, dharna politics.
Yes.
And definitely, the after effects can be seen on his trip to the UNGA. First of all, it's a very short trip. He'll be leaving back home on 27th. And secondly, the bilaterals, which used to be more significant, I don't find that much significant this time. And all the bilaterals will be done today, and some of them will be done tomorrow.
So the focus is
and
going
the
to be on the
history is that always the India is one day after Pakistani speaks, because the trick behind that, what I understand is, they keep their right to reply reserved, because if Pakistan mentions Kashmir or other issues, then Indian Prime Minister can come out and rather than using the right to reply, what they do, he answers in the same speech. And then Pakistan in the rebound uses their right of reply through the ambassador.
So has this been the case in all the previous UNGAs you've reported?
Yeah, I think I have been here for 40 years, and in 40 years, I think I must have seen for more than about 10 times.
Okay.
When, the Pakistanis use their right to reply, and then rebound, and I think 3-4 times, this right of reply was used from both sides.
So what we think in India, when we are looking at Sharif's speech tomorrow, we think he's going to play the same old broken record of Kashmir all over. Because he's embattled now.
Right.
He has his domestic problems. He's going to be watched. And therefore he'll raise the Kashmir card predictably. Do you think he's going to do that?
He might make a reference to Kashmir, but he won't be as strong as they used to be in the past. That's my own opinion.
Why is that?
Because first of all, he himself is crippled and affected by the domestic politics. And secondly, globally, India has gone way above. And, now that bilateralism, which used to be enjoyed by the world, hey, this is India-Pakistan politics, first you resolve that and come to us.
Yeah.
That's no more check on India. India is in another orbit, and Pakistan is part of those satellite around India as a security state.
Arnav, if I may step in here, it's very interesting that there was a time when Pakistan raised Kashmir, there were other countries who piped in, China, some of Pakistan's allies in the Muslim world, who also mentioned it.
Yeah.
That number is now down to 1. If the Pakistani Prime Minister does mention Kashmir, he will be the only head of state addressing the United Nations General Assembly who will be talking about Kashmir. So the UN General Assembly is a forum where you are more effective when you have more allies.
Yeah.
And as Azim Mia pointed out rightly, the foreign policy of any country is only as strong as it is internally.
Yeah.
And as somebody who cares deeply about my country, I must say Pakistan right now needs to focus more inwards. We have serious economic problems. I have repeated this so much that people have now got sort of irritated with me, but I always point out literacy rates, Pakistan is falling behind. higher academic output, Pakistan is falling behind. Research and development, Pakistan has fallen way behind. So Pakistan has to make up its mind.
Somehow
Do
I
we-
don't get the same feeling when I speak to several others in Pakistan. I mean, I don't know. Maruf, if
no, I was in fact just going to say the
this
same
is all
thing.
very pleasant from an Indian perspective, but I'm a bit of a cynic when it comes to Pakistan.
Of course.
No,
But here's the problem.
Yeah.
Here's the problem. Many people in my country, and especially those who have a free license to talk to you, you must remember, it's not a fully
You mean
free.
people need a license to talk to me?
Well, let me put it this way, that in Pakistan, a lot of people who talk about peace with India or want a closer relationship with the United States are looked upon with suspicion and described as traitors by the establishment. So there is a list of people who are kind of pre-cleared by the establishment, who
understand.
repeat the whole mantra.
Yeah.
But the fact remains that that is not going to solve any of our problems. When Chinese President Jiang Zemin came to Pakistan in 1998, he said to the Pakistani parliament that the problems you can't solve must be set aside to go forward with the issues that you can move forward on. And he was referring indirectly to China's own attitude towards Taiwan. Now, Pakistan and India need to move forward. Everybody in the world recognizes it, except the Pakistani establishment. And poor Nawaz Sharif, he wanted to change that. I will be honest here, I am a critic of his, I don't belong to his party, I don't support him politically. He wanted to change this, just as President Asif Zardari wanted to change it before him. But the civilians cannot change it till such time as the Pakistani establishment recognizes that what they've done is they've put Pakistan into a blind alley.
Right. Maruf, you
Yeah.
wanted to give.
There are a lot of interesting issues. I don't share entirely what the two distinguished guests from Pakistan have said, but I mean, I'm generally on board with a number of issues that they are trying to lead us in the direction. And I tell you where the problem lies. Your own political affiliates or party, PPP. You had Bilal Bhutto recently thumping his chest and hysterically shouting, Kashmir, Kashmir, and I will get back every inch of Kashmir. You can get back what you had. If you haven't had it, I don't know how you can get it back. Anyway, that's semantics. But I think more importantly, you've raised a number of important issues, and you are a keen observer of the role of the military in Pakistan and Pakistan's civil society. And I think there are several issues that come up in what you've said. Christine Fair's book talks about fighting to the finish, the whole ethos of the Pakistan army. That if they abandon the Kashmir issue, that would be seen as defeat. If they continue to get browbeaten by the world or even sidelined by India on the subject, it's not seen as defeat as long as you don't abandon it. And whatever means you use for getting the Kashmir issue back on the table, either through trying to bleed India by 1,000 cuts or by getting more tension on the line of control or whatever, you are basically keeping the agenda alive. But I think the bigger question that I'd request both of you to address and answer, that if Pakistan was to abandon Kashmir, what would be the other issues that can help Pakistan rally itself together?
Now we are going into the same thing.
No, but more importantly, Mr. Haqqani, is it possible? I mean, that as you say, Nawaz Sharif is going to underplay Kashmir at the United Nations General Assembly.
I think
I would be of the view.
He'll be using very soft words, number one. And secondly, I don't
But
agree
do you
with
have
Maruf.
any concrete information on that as a journalist?
Yeah, the
Get your
speech is
sources
being
telling you-
ready right now. The input is being given for tomorrow. By the evening, I think it might be finalized. Then I'll be in a better
What do you
position to
define?
know.
What do you call soft words? I mean, just
Soft word
explain that a
means
bit.
indirect reference to Kashmir, or say, okay, we are at the United Nations and this should be resolved. We want to
So the
resolve.
Here's my
so the
question.
same
Why is it
perfunctory-
important?
The same
Yeah.
perfunctory
Well,
one sentence.
I mean-
No, why is it important?
It's only a speech. And
It's
as I
only a
said,
speech.
out of 192, he's the only one who's going to say it. What Pakistanis needs to understand, and I'm addressing Pakistanis, and I want you to save the tape of this conversation because we will come back to it in a few years. I'm telling you, Pakistan has to make a critical decision. 10 years from now, does it want to be more like South Korea or does it want to be more like North Korea? A country that is isolated with nuclear weapons but totally absorbed with its own anger about issues that are unresolved. And very frankly, from India's point of view, and I understand some of you get very het up about things in Pakistan, and I get upset too, by the way, with the way domestic argument goes. But I take my stand and I stand there. I am absolutely convinced that this is actually a fork in the road. Either Pakistan joins the rest of the world in economic progress, in scientific progress, in peace with neighbors. No country these days, Arnab, has a prosperous economy if they don't have their major trade with their neighboring
Again,
countries.
I'm a bit of a cynic when it comes
No,
to Pakistan.
you have a right to be cynic. I'm also cynical in my own way.
I believe the only time when the Pakistani economy was truly on the upswing, from my perspective, is maybe in the 60s or the early 70s when the first rush of American money started coming into Pakistan as a counterweight to whatever the USSR was doing at that point of time in Afghanistan. So as far as the economy is concerned, the Pakistani military, its entire purpose of its existence, which I feel you're not coming on, and I want you to talk about it, because I would have felt that Nawaz Sharif comes to the UNGA knowing very well that, as you said, dharna politics, embattled. Some people say he's a puppet prime minister who is far more dependent on the patronage of the Pakistani army than he would have liked. What?
No, but you have to.
And we saw the provocation.
No,
we
now
saw-
you have to
Azim
give
Miaz-
one advantage and remember one fact,
Yes.
that Nawaz Sharif wants to go back to the same days when Vajpayee walked into Pakistan in Lahore and wanted to have a dialogue. It was a meaningful dialogue going on,
with respect
and
to my-
still he is stuck with that.
to my
He is stuck with
I
that.
must say it's not
No,
easy.
that's
It's
right.
not easily
No, but
done.
let him respond.
Sir, that's
And
all
still
very-
that is on his mind.
Let him
I
respond.
think, I have said so myself on television earlier that Nawaz Saab, even in his election speeches and other things, he actually, and he took a lot of courage to come to Mr. Modi's swearing in. We have respect for all that. But the reality is that he's not going to be president or prime minister of another country. He has to be prime minister of Pakistan.
That's
If he has
right.
to be prime minister of Pakistan, he has to deal with the kind of opposition that the military is putting brakes in front of him.
Fair enough.
And saying, you toe our line, or we've got alternatives lined up in the
Maruf
form
Saab,
of
we all
Imran
agree
Khan.
on
No, Maruf Saab, one thing more.
Let-
India has to respond. Look, listen, if India also wants a peace in that region, India has to respond positively to all these offers from smaller Pakistan. Because the
What do you
thing
mean
is,
by
if-
smaller Pakistan?
because we are smaller than India in size, in population, in resources, even now in global image.
Yes.
In all these regards, Pakistan is much smaller than India. Now, as regards the army is concerned, whether it's an Indian army or Nepali army or Pakistani army, armies are made to defend the borders and countries. And
Pakistan,
armies,
in Pakistan, the
I
rules
agree
are
with that. Not only that, I'm one of those who have been opposing all these martial law regimes all along
But the blame,
without any
also, the
exception.
blame also, sir, lies
Right.
in weak
No,
political
but why
leaders.
India shies away from encouraging Nawaz Sharif, who wants to mend fences with India? Why they don't encourage him? Why don't they really give him some concessions
Mr. Azim
to
Mia,
work at that?
Azim Mia, If I may just play devil's advocate once again with you on this, India would want to encourage any such steps, and I think the very fact that Mr. Modi invited Nawaz Sharif, and among the several leaders of the region who he invited for his swearing in, I think was stepping up to the plate of global diplomacy in a way. Where the setback was when your High Commissioner in New Delhi decided to have the meeting with the separatists as a brazen and open provocation. Now, if you look at the timing of that,
No, but they have been meeting all along. There is a record. Even previous ambassadors have been meeting the Kashmiri
But,
leaders.
sir, I
There were
think
two
they failed
differences.
to see that the mood in India and the new government was moving to a new direction.
In any case-
I think they failed to anticipate.
And Maruzab, in
Right.
any case, such meetings that are likely to impact the bilateral relationship should be the subject of a bilateral conversation before they are scheduled. So I understand the argument on this one, that maybe there was a mistake committed.
Yes.
But I have a slightly different perspective. I'm not making this into a, Maruf Saab's argument seems to be that it's inevitable that Pakistan will remain the way it is. My argument is that it is inevitable that Pakistan will have to change. While both of us agree on the attitude of the military,
yeah.
my view is that the force of circumstances, the winds are blowing in a certain direction.
Yes.
It's only a matter of time.
Yes.
Now, Azim Mia's argument is that India has more onus in trying to make respond to gestures. I am on your side on this one, that if India does not want to respond to gestures it seems that it sees as ineffective, it's well within its rights. I think India needs to just continue to move the way it is doing. Congratulations to the Indian people on their Mars mission. people in Pakistan need to be told that there is an Indian Mars mission. Unfortunately, you will be surprised at the level of lack of information inside Pakistan about India. When I was served as Information Secretary in the second Benazir Bhutto government, we made an effort to try and create sort of exchanges of correspondence and open the availability of newspapers. For example, if the Jung newspaper was sold in India, there will be millions of Urdu readers who would like a good Urdu newspaper, because with all due respect to Urdu journalists in India, there isn't a good Indian Urdu language newspaper there. I wouldn't mind being able to pick up the Times of India every now and then in Karachi, or the Indian Express on a daily basis, whatever. My point being that we are at very different levels of awareness and knowledge about each other at the popular level. And so the politicians are really in a difficult place.
So, Mr. Haqqani, while I appreciate your views, and I must say that from this conversation, I must say you are among the most extremely sincere analysts of the region in its complexities, and you don't even carry with yourself the own baggage of your having been a diplomat for your country. You're very open mind, which is excellent. The reason we are having this conversation, and I would be delighted tomorrow if Azim Mia Saab's prophecy that Nawaz Sharif will pull his punches, right? You're saying he'll pull his punches, he'll go a little soft, you say.
Yes.
I think we'd be delighted if he goes soft on Kashmir, because I think it would reflect the realization that you bring to the table that after all there is no support for Kashmir anymore. The issue has been picked up by the Security Council since I think 1952. The reason we are having this conversation is because the world is today in a unique position, which if you followed Obama's speech before the UN General Assembly yesterday, talked about the global challenge to terrorism.
Absolutely.
I now want to bring the subject of the discussion, Maruf, and draw you in on this as well. Our concern vis-a-vis Pakistan, principally, is and only, Kashmir is an irritant. I mean, Pakistan raising it is an irritant, but we know beyond the point it will not matter much to the Indian.
Speeches don't really hurt.
Speeches don't hurt
much,
and we are
as terrorism does.
Yeah. Our concern is not so much today. Of course, Kashmir is rhetoric. Our concern is about terrorism.
Absolutely.
And
by the way, Arnab, it's the concern of the whole world.
Exactly.
And so that's why
other than those
who engage in it,
use it as a tool of foreign policy.
But
and I think Mr. Obama, to paraphrase a bit from what he said, and I was reading his speech in great detail, the fact he said that you cannot use terrorism as a pillar of your foreign policy.
And by the way, what are the consequences for Pakistan?
And it doesn't. He says America is against terror. America is not against Islam. So, this whole argument of chest-thumping jihadi warriors.
Maruf Sahib, that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm saying that there is an inevitability to it. Look, there was a time when I, as an 18-year-old, traveled to London without a visa. As a Pakistani. You did too. Okay, so they put visas on our own. But right now, most Pakistanis do not realize it. The young Pakistanis, the guys who go around shouting for Imran Khan and all that kind of people, these young people have no idea that Pakistan no longer, Pakistani passport is no longer a document you can use to travel to 90% of the world's countries without a visa. You need a visa even for everything.
What is the reason for that?
And that's what I'm coming to. And the reason for that is that Pakistan is seen as an incubator of terrorism.
Exactly.
So Pakistan, for its own interest, has to deal with it. Now, I agree with you that there are powerful forces in Pakistan that do not allow us to do it. But those of us who say we need to do it, we have the logic of history and the logic of the future onward movement. Does Pakistan want to end up like the Islamic State territory, where international powers are now getting together to try and sort out some illegitimate forces that have taken power? People like Hafiz Saeed should be brought to justice by the state of Pakistan before they become a state within our state.
That is principle.
That's not happening.
So I am glad that we have come down to this issue, because for us, we will watch Nawaz Sharif's speech, Azim Mia Saab, from two perspectives. We will watch what he says on Kashmir. And I have a feeling that if he says something on Kashmir, as you said, this whole opportunity is there for India to respond the next day. My own view, though many people would say that...
If I were Prime Minister Modi, I wouldn't respond. I would just look forward.
So one view would be that Mr. Modi would probably just move forward and ignore Pakistan's reference to Kashmir. But surely the government of India would want to pummel all those forces in Pakistan who support the Haqqani network.
Not just Haqqani though.
Yeah, different one.
Not the Haqqani who's with me in Manhattan.
No, not that one.
Not this Haqqani. You're as far removed from that Haqqani as any Haqqani.
By the way, it's not even their family name. They took over the name because Haqqani literally means...
Are you related in any way?
No. They come from one school of thought and that's called Madrasa Haqqaniya.
Yeah, they went to a school that was named after my great-grandfather called the Madrasa Haqqaniya. And they adopted the name of the school.
So when I look at it from an Indian perspective, and I'm sorry I'm being a little selfish in my worldview today, I'm glad you share some of the concerns I have. That I think our concern is how do we take use of this wonderful opportunity when America has realized with ISIS that it has made a grave mistake in Iraq.
Right.
It has made a grave mistake in Afghanistan. And today it needs global help. And today also its stakes are a little higher for at least this American administration. You live and work in America to get rid of the problem with global help. What we would want to see is build a new economic military partnership, a strategic partnership with America perhaps.
Right.
And use that partnership to get America to work on our strategic concerns, which principally from the Indian perspective will be the Haqqani network in North Waziristan, which hurts our interests in Afghanistan, and what you call the Jamaat-ud-Dawa, what we call the Lashkar-e-Toiba, Hafiz Saeed and his network, which are used to outsource terrorism to Jammu and Kashmir. The question to you is, many Indians would say this is the time for India to really strike and make a strong case and say that yes, what Obama has said is right, we are with you in the global war on terror, only we don't want it to be a global war on terror only to defend American interests.
Right.
We want it to defend Indian interests.
Right, true.
That's been the experience in the past.
So Maruf, do you think
I do agree with you. This is the time, but I think I have a different perspective.
Please share.
This is the time when India and Pakistan can sit together without preconditions.
How is it possible?
And I think because in Pakistan, despite the fact whatever the army's mood is, the public mood is let's mend the fences with India and let's,
who's going to take the first step? Not a weak president.
No, the thing is, that's the only thing, in the politics is going on, who blinks first.
Exactly.
Rather than that, I think this is a time, if I had any kind of a decision on that, without presetting the conditions, India and Pakistan should come to the table, sort out the issues, build bridges, expand the trade, and then move on. Because in Pakistan, Nawaz Sharif has got a mood to mend the fences with India.
This is the dilemma. India feels that a weak prime minister in Pakistan cannot mend fences, and rightly so.
I don't think that's a wrong estimate.
It's an absolute, as I said, rightly so. In Pakistan, the prime minister and his sympathizers feel that he cannot move without India being a little more supportive in the process. My view is, detaching myself a little bit, even though I have a stake in it, but I detach myself a little bit and I say, what is the likely outcome? And here's what I'm saying. Whenever there's a fork in the road, choices have to be made. The choice will have to be made by Pakistan's military and intelligence service to actually back away from its past reluctance to move forward with normalization with India, especially in trade, etc., and holding it all hostage to one single issue.
Why would they do so?
They would do so because of the prospect of what you are talking about. An American-Indian entente, a global alliance that may actually exclude and marginalize Pakistan.
So let me ask, that's a very interesting point, Madhu. What Hussein Haqqani is saying here, that if India builds a stronger, if Modi in the process of his visit to the US, which by the way is it's quite a windy and rainy day, isn't it, today?
It is. It is.
I'm enjoying this, having come from Mumbai. I don't know about you.
Well, I mean, who knows? Who knows? Tomorrow Nawaz Sharif's speech might generate a little bit of heat in some part of town.
But going back to the point which you raised here. So, Maruf, then my question to you is do you think it is in Mr. Modi's interest here to make a very strong case on the issue of terrorism? Probably let aside the reference on Kashmir as a non-issue and therefore relegate that issue, even if Sharif wants to speak about it, but focus more on cooperating on a global war on terrorism and use that as a lever to India's own strategic advantage.
Yeah, I mean, there is a very strong possibility. I've said it on your debate earlier last week also, that Mr. Modi will probably just ignore the Kashmir reference and move on to other things. He may in all probably do that, because if you see from Mr. Modi's agenda in the US, he's got so much packed in.
Right.
He's trying to attract so many quarters, from businessmen to defense industry, from White House to various other entrepreneurs and the Indian diaspora here. So, I mean, that's one. But I think I go back to Haqqani Saab and Azim Mia's two crucial points.
Yeah.
One is, why is it that Pakistanis expect India to provide them crutches to make their civilian leaders stronger? Isn't it the responsibility of their own civilian leadership, their own civilian leadership, to deliver on issues that are dear to Pakistan?
Maruf
such as economy?
Sahab, I agree with you that fine, Pakistanis should move forward, but India is a regional power now.
Sir,
so as a regional power, sometimes, you know, you have to be affectionate to your younger and your smaller
I
country.
mean, I am flattered with the kind of discussion we're having today, because I've had, I mean, pretty heated hostile discussions with other guests who come in from Pakistan, who are actually living in the past, really. But I think a bigger issue that I want to bring out, and I want it from you today, sir. I want it from both of you today. It's a very important issue to me. I need to understand, and I think many of our viewers need to understand, what is it that you would, attribute as an important asset that Pakistan's leaders must aspire to build to veer them away from this rivalry with India?
Yeah, sure.
Constitutionally.
Sure, there is already a work there. There is a school of thought who is working at that, and moderates like Hussain Haqqani and all that, they speak out and the message is being carried. But again, the thing is, if India wants to be a regional power there as per aspirations, and India is becoming, now the red carpet will be rolled in Washington for Narendra Modi, whereas Nawaz Sharif will be returning from New York. So that thing is there, the environment is there. But sometimes the bigger countries also give some concessions, move forward rather than pre-setting the conditions, are reacting to the poll mix. As Manmohan Singh once said, you know, this Kashmir issue and other, they are poll mix, and we don't respond to that. I think Manmohan was right in that assertion that reference of a Kashmir in a speech is a poll mix, and they should not. India should also grow up to the size and the stature which India is acquiring right.
So, in conclusion, Mr. Haqqani, you share his view that when Nawaz Sharif speaks, he won't raise much on Kashmir.
I'm not too sure.
You're not too sure on that?
I'm not too sure because I'm not privy to what he might say.
But what's your guess? I mean, you've been part of these conversations as a diplomat.
He could make a calculation that he needs to play to the domestic audience. We've already seen other Pakistani political figures trying to play to the
What's the
domestic audience.
consequence of that going to be?
Well, the consequence is going to be that it's going to irritate people in India without making any gain for Pakistan.
Makes the prospect of a resumed conversation even more difficult between both countries.
And it gives people in India makes them feel that, you know what, these guys are not serious about moving forward, because look, it's not that I don't feel, many Pakistanis feel that Pakistan had a rightful claim to Kashmir in 1947, etc., etc. But my point is different. My point is not about right or wrong. My point is about practicality. In practical terms, it is in Pakistan's interest to move forward and realize, you remember that Mr. Jinnah said that the future of India-Pakistan relations would be for both countries to settle down to a relationship similar to that between the United States and Canada. That basically means a non-hostile relationship, open borders, trade, economic investment from one another. And that will benefit, at this moment, Pakistan even more than it would benefit India. And as a Pakistani, I speak in Pakistan's interest. I agree with the cynics in India that this is not happening.
Can I add something to that?
I also point out, look, China and America are now hugely invested in each other.
Of course.
There was a time that the United States did not even recognize the People's Republic of China. Somebody had a vision. So Richard Nixon said, we can't ignore 1 billion people of China, we have to go out. My point is, don't ignore the singular voices coming out of Pakistan who may someday gather the momentum and say, you know what,
I agree with you, and can I also, yes, please, sir.
You know, even if he makes a direct or indirect reference to Kashmir, Nawaz Sharif, Indians should, also look at the domestic compulsions of Nawaz Sharif, who is already plagued with this dharna politics on one hand, who is also at the even having a wedge with the army, with the ISI. So he has got his own set of problems. So it should be viewed as a for the domestic consumption.
In
like
conclusion, I just want to add one small observation in this. One party which gets let off the hook always is the United States of America.
Yeah.
Because you look back at the history and you find that in somewhere, as somebody wrote in the 50s, there was a choice that America made that it needs to have a partnership with Pakistan as a counterweight to the USSR. And today, 50, 60 years later, America is the most hated country in your own country of Pakistan. So I think America also needs to look within. If they have armed the army, if they have created a state within a state, as Benazir Bhutto once famously described the ISI, they need to also defang and disarm those groups who are doing no good to the democracy.
Or create the enabling environment for that.
And I think I don't know about owning up, but I sometimes find the American president's speeches in the UNGA too preachy.
But also I think America, just when I was thinking that America would begin to get real on South Asia after their withdrawal from Afghanistan, we've got now the Islamic State phenomena, which has now taken away their attention. So I think America is just going to go from crisis solving to crisis solving. And at the end of the day, I think we need people with vision in both our countries to come up with a big picture, come up with an alternative, and come up with an alternative.
Absolutely.
And I feel, going back to Arnab's point, that you take Kashmir away from Pakistan, what do you give to the army in Pakistan to do? You see, unfortunately, sir, you are an author of many books.
They're already in a lot of fields where they can stay.
That's precisely the argument I have, that you've got so much happening. By one study, half the size of your army are number of armed militants walking around in Pakistan today. And to battle them, you need huge
Pakistan
forces.
needs an army. Pakistan needs an intelligence service. What we need is an army and an intelligence service that operates within the sphere of the constitution, and it doesn't assume that it alone knows what is Pakistan's national interest.
I hope that when Sharif speaks tomorrow, he gets real. I hope his audience is neither the Pakistan army nor Imran Khan, and I hope he speaks from a position of taking the relationship with India forward, not backward. And we'll also watch how Modi responds. My gut feeling is Modi may choose to ignore what Nawaz Sharif says. But let's see what happens. Thank you very much for making the time, for getting a little drenched with me here today, and for sharing this wonderful morning in Manhattan. Thank you very much.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you.
Such a pleasure.
Thank you.